a webinar. But the idea for today's webinar is it's the top 10 maintenance tips to save your strata money in the long run. So the whole idea, we've done a lot of these kind of how to save funds and things like that. This one's going to be more about being proactive and actually about how to spend money, because you know, you're managing large assets here that do require a lot of capital reinvestment in order to keep them up. And you'll see when I go through some of these examples how deferring things, how not doing maintenance, not spending money can actually cost you a tremendous amount in the long run. So that's the topic for today. And just going to get into it. Can everyone see the presentation okay? My name is Chris Stepchuk, CEO and Managing Broker at Fort Park Property Management and Real Estate. We specialize in strata management for residential, commercial, light industrial strata since 2008. And we ensure, you know, or try to provide as best as we can a smooth and hassle-free experience for property owners. The tagline for today, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And you're going to hear kind of a lot about that. That's a famous quote from Benjamin Franklin from the 1700s. And it certainly rings true in the strata world. And what we see a lot of times, I guess, is, you know, I hear this a lot because I do sit in on a lot of AGMs and hold some of my own. And, you know, very often, you know, you end up the year with a large surplus, maybe $30,000 or something like that, depending on the size of your budget. And the owners are high-fiving each other because it gets to keep their strata fees low the next year. And council gets a pat on the back for job well done. And while it's certainly good to run surpluses, it doesn't always mean that the strata has done a great job by running a huge surplus. What it can mean in certain instances is that maintenance was simply not done that was budgeted for, so it was deferred, which may end up coming back to bite in the end. So just something to keep in mind if you're running surplus after surplus, might not be the best thing in the world. I mean, it could be good if you're just shaving costs where you can, but you certainly don't want to do it at the expense of not doing maintenance. So these are the top 10 things that we see that you want to make sure you are reinvesting your strata fees into. So roof maintenance. So depending on the size of your strata, your roof replacement can be $100,000. You know, for smaller buildings, it can be $2 million. Our strata right now, where I'm on council, we are redoing our roof, and we've been in the process of it. And it's going to be about $1 million, maybe a little bit over that by the time things are said and done. So it's a huge investment. Most roofs are going to last 25 years. But if you can stretch it out for an additional 10 years, or sometimes we even see roofs will last 40 years if they're really well maintained, depending on, you know, how much sun, or if they're covered with gravel, or just you know, different things like that. But if they're, you know, if you've got moss all over them and pooling water, and you're not clearing the drains, you're not patching it where it's required and water is getting in, you can expect it'll last a lot shorter of a period than 40 years. So, you know, you need to make sure that you're doing repairs should be done as needed, but caulking for the flashings and preventing water ingress, replacing missing shingles, just redoing the sealants every few years. It's kind of common sense stuff, but you really want to make sure that you're working with you know, a legitimate roofing company that specializes in maintenance, that is taking care of these things, and it can save you a bundle of money down the road. Trees. So trees are something that can be really, really invasive. Certainly the roots on certain trees can get into the water lines. They can get into the waste lines. Collapsed drain lines can be very expensive to repair because you have to dig them up very often, trench, and it's a lot of labor involved. If you're getting sewer backups because of drain lines that have have roots in them. That can be very expensive from an insurance standpoint. Owners having to replace carpeting and cabinets and things like that. And then dead trees, I know I've had it happen to, to my property before, where they just kind of fall over and they land on either your property or an adjacent property. And then you've got insurance issues. You've got to redo the roof. Certainly in some of the windstorms that we've had, that's fairly often will happen. So proactive tree maintenance costs far less than emergency repairs and cleanup. So a lot of the owners might question, well, why do we have, tree inspections every year? That's expensive, where they go in and look at the drain lines and things like that. But again, if you're spending a couple thousand on that versus a huge insurance deductible or having to redo the drain lines, it can be a very, very well spent couple $1,000s. So next thing that we've got here is parkade sealing. So the parkade has to be resealed every, it's not something you're going to do every year, but maybe every 5 or 10 years. This will prevent water penetration into the concrete. It protects the rebar from corrosion and rusting, and it will extend the life of your slab. When you have to redo it, it's very, very, very expensive. So you don't want to be getting into structural repairs and things like that. I mean, we've seen buildings where the concrete is literally falling from the sky and falling onto cars and things like that. So it's highly recommended you don't get it, allow it to get to that point where those kind of things are happening. And reactive concrete restoration can be very expensive. It's very, it's dangerous. It's also, it should never get to that point. Next thing is rotting fences and decks. So wood fences and decks are highly exposed to water and weather, particularly here in the lower mainland, particularly on the North Shore. I mean, we see this all the time. Regular painting and staining should be done every few years. This will help prevent the rot and decay. Many stratas delay or skip this maintenance, allowing structures to deteriorate. If you maintain your fencing, it should last from at least 15 years, maybe 25 years. But again, we see properties where they pay for a brand new fence. It's a wood fence. And then within 5 years, the thing is already rotting because it was never stained properly. And then you have to replace it maybe at the 10-year mark. So not a good use of your money. Another alternative there is vinyl fencing. So that's a super long-term alternative, very expensive, but it looks great and basically maintenance free and will outlast probably the property in most cases. So just something to keep in mind, even if it's limited common property, the strata might want to kind of take this over and make sure that it's being done, and don't leave it up to the owners to do it, because a lot of them won't do it. Some just don't care. If they're, sometimes when they're rental properties, people just don't even know that they're deteriorating because they don't go to the property very often. Number 5 that we've got on the list is the hydro flush. So we do recommend this gets done every few years. Yeah, it's expensive. It can be a few $1,000s, but these drain lines and everything will clog up with soap and grease and hair and God knows what else people flush down there. So paper towel, people are putting paper towel or wipes down there. So just a damage from sewer backups can be absolutely massive, especially if you're in a high-rise building where the stack can get clogged and then it just goes right up the stack and it can affect 3 or 4 or more floors. Can be hundreds of thousands. I mean, it happens in our building where I live. It's happened a couple times, and each time has been around $200,000 in damage, multiple suites. So can easily be prevented, or not necessarily easily prevented, but can be prevented, some of these things, with regular hydro flushing of your horizontals and your verticals. Caulking your windows, number 6. So Water is Strata's worst enemy, particularly here in BC and the Lower Mainland. Um, Over time, water can seep behind windows and flashings. Moisture can cause damage to the insulation, framing, interior finishes. And if you don't know about it, you assume everything's fine, but sometimes undetected water intrusion can lead to mold behind the scenes. And we do see that where we weren't even aware of a leak, and next thing you know, there's black mold on the drywall or on some of the envelope, and now you have a real problem, very labor intensive and very expensive to remediate mold. The companies that do that really take full advantage of it, and you will pay dearly for that if that has to get done properly with all the proper protocols and the hazmat suits and the masks and all those things. So regular window caulking every 5-7 years can really help prevent water intrusion, and can be very, very inexpensive when compared to doing building envelope repairs, which sometimes require removing envelope. That can require scaffolding at times, which is very expensive to set up. Next one is gutter cleaning, number 7. So clean your gutters every year to keep them flowing. Leaves and pine needles can quickly clog up your downspouts, and this can cause blockages, water, which then goes over the gutter and in behind, and it gets into the fascia and your soffits. And maybe you don't really see it right away, but that constant water is going to eventually rot them. And then again, very labor intensive to you have to basically remove all your gutters and redo them and redo the soffits and the fascia. So good timing for this is to do your gutter cleaning in the fall, probably after the leaves have fallen. So you get rid of those leaves and the water is going to flow freely before the rainy season. So yeah, like, October, late October, early November, even a good time to probably do that. But if you notice them and they're starting to grow trees in your gutters and leaves are spilling out, probably better sooner rather than later is a good time to do it. Winterizing, number 8. So this is really important. Inspect your hose bibs for leaks every few years. I mean, we don't really have a winter this year, so maybe it's the timing of this isn't great. But if winter ever does return, you want to make sure your owners shut off their hose bib valves before the temperatures freeze. Again, I don't even know if they got below freezing this year, but usually it does. When they do freeze, if there is water, like if you leave your hose on and there's water in it, then that can freeze and it can go right back up into the hose bib and into the actual supply lines. And sometimes those will burst, which causes a ton of damage to the inside of the property. You want to insulate your exposed pipes, especially in the parkade, and make sure that they are serviced in the fall, that all the water's drained out of them. And again, preventative winterization is far less costly than emergency pipe repairs and water damage. So that's a bit of a no-brainer, but again, people don't really think about it all the time, and they don't necessarily budget for it. So it's important that you do budget accordingly. Boiler and hot water maintenance, hot water tank. So you want to maintain your boiler to extend the life of these very expensive capital items. Anyone who's replaced a boiler knows how expensive that can be. Your hot water tank, same thing. You need to replace them every probably 10 or 15 years, but at least have them serviced. And make sure that you're replacing them before they go, because when they do rust out at the bottom and they go, then it can be very costly and a lot of damage. And we've seen that many times where hot water tank goes. If it's on the ground floor, maybe not the end of the world, but when it's on an upper floor, it can cause a lot of damage to suites below. So just, use your plumbing company, your HVAC company to come in and look at that on an annual basis and tell you where you're at with it. Don't rely on the depreciation report for that. They're not really inspecting it. They're just looking at the age of it and telling you that it will need to be replaced in 10 or 15 years. But, actually have a professional come and do that and look at it. And then number 10 is the sump pit cleaning. So these should be cleaned out every few years, remove debris that can clog or damage sumps. This will extend the life of the sump pump equipment, and it reduces, the biggest thing is reducing the risk of pump failure during heavy rain events. So if you guys do have issues and that sump stops working and you need it, it can cause a huge amount of damage to lower suites. And we've seen that, certainly seen that before. So you want to make sure that it is working properly, that's being inspected. And again, the theme of today, preventative cleaning costs far less than emergency repairs. And nobody likes insurance deductibles going up because you've got insurance claims. And then the bonus one, very last one, number 11, is balcony membranes. I had to throw this in here because it can be a little bit tricky, because usually balconies are limited common property and the Strata Council won't necessarily be aware if there's any issues. You're kind of relying on owners to report that, which certain owners will, but if they're tenanted properties, they may not even know about it if they're not doing inspections, and the tenant may not say anything. So just something to be aware of, that, you know, even if it's limited common property and you can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not damaged, and it doesn't mean that it's not the Strata's responsibility. And when those membranes go and the water gets in and then they start to rot, that can be very, very expensive to repair. Scaffolding, engineers, all that stuff on Strata's dime. So make sure that you guys are either inspecting them or having the owners at least, you can send out surveys. Some of our buildings will do that, just kind of asking the owners if there's any tears in them. But you want to avoid the wood rot for sure, because it is a very bad thing for Strata buildings. So that's the presentation for today. And now I'd like to open